Hi, and welcome to Dear Art Producer. I am your host, Heather Elder, and today is April 9th, 2025. We're joined by Freelance senior producer Jessica Ola, a powerhouse in all things production, from the earliest stages of creative development to on-set execution, post-production, and asset delivery. She's a master at bringing creative visions to life while keeping a close eye on timelines and budgets. Jessica is also a filmmaker, art enthusiast, music lover, self-proclaimed goofball, and an all-around team player. She has over 15 years of experience working with automotive, electronics, sports, and food accounts as a producer for such brands as Mercedes-Benz, Mazda, Lincoln, Kia, Sony, Taco Bell, Polo Yoko, Vans, and PacSun. So welcome, Jessica. It's so nice to have you here today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It has been absolutely forever since we've seen each other. But when we started talking today, I felt like it was like a heartbeat. We haven't skipped a beat. I just love that.
Like no time has passed.
Like no time has passed. That's very special. And considering how long we've both been in the business, a lot of time has passed. So
yes, exactly.
Thank you for being on the show today. I know you have a lot of great insights to share, so we'll kind of get right into it. And I like to always start by trying to give the audience a bit of an idea of kind of where you came from and what experiences and jobs that you've had before, you became who you are today. And maybe you can kind of just explain a little bit about what was the path that brought you into production?
Sure. I always wanted to be in advertising. I majored in communications. And I remember when it was time to intern, I didn't want to take an internship because it was unpaid. And at the time I was working for MAC Cosmetics, making all kinds of money. And I had to sort of, go part-time in order to intern. But I'm so happy that I took the internship because at the time I met an art producer and I'd never even heard of an art producer before. I fell in love with that role because I had no idea that I could take my passion for photography and my organization skills and make money doing it.
It's pretty amazing because I feel like so many people who answer this question say the same thing, that they had no idea that the role existed. And right. I know back when we all started, it was kind of becoming what it is today, right? It was different. It was right. Different roles and stuff. But I'm really hopeful that for today's students who are coming into the market, I hope that they, have a bit more of an understanding of what that role is, because it's a really, really important role, especially how our industry is changing. And I think, it's a really special role too. And for people who like art and who like the business side of things and advertising, I think, it's no surprise that you're in the role that you're in.
Yes, it was very exciting. I was trying to get into copywriting. I do love to write, but this was the most perfect thing I could find.
Now, tell me a little bit about your role as an art producer. I'm sure it's changed a lot over the years, but explain it.
It's definitely changed a lot. I went from straight art production to full production. I've been freelancing for the last few years, and I'm covering all aspects of production, which you sort of segued into: video, stills, digital content, broadcast, and I got into filmmaking, as you mentioned. So, I'm doing everything from working with creatives on initial concept to, on-set productions to post-production and then, asset management.
And do you feel like in today's market, being that diverse and having that many different skills is necessary?
I personally feel that. For a long time, I did not want to get into broadcast. I so love the still art form of photography, but it's just been very interesting. There's a lot of hybrid, and I know we'll get into it later, but the hybrid shoot, I think, is like sort of the wave of the future. It's happening now, especially when we're talking about budgets and timing, et cetera. It's important, and it's very exciting for me. Like I said, I didn't see myself doing this. I definitely didn't see myself being a filmmaker, and here we go.
Yeah. It's fun to watch your filmmaking evolve online.
Thank you.
Had a great ride there. Okay, so tell me, what are you known for on your team? I mean, I know you've been on a lot of different teams, but is there something consistent that rises to the top?
I think people know that I am impeccable with my word. When I say I'm going to do something, I will do everything I can do. I'm a huge champion for creatives and photographers, and I'm really good at team building, which is making sure that we get all the information, that everybody's on board, That, and as I said, I'm kind of a goofball, but I'm like the entertainer. I just want everybody to have the best time they can while we're working really hard, because as you know, it is hard. It's hard work. So not just looking forward to catering, which I do, because, sometimes it's like watching paint peel on these sets, and all you're thinking about is, oh, I just need a break and I want food. I'm just trying to make it a little bit more exciting. And I think my team knows that.
Yeah, I think that's more important than ever, because I would also add to that the pre-production part of a shoot right now is really intense.
Yes.
Much more intense than it's ever been. There's so many more cooks in the kitchen. There's so many people who are leading with fear. There's, just a lot of things are different. We're not leading with creativity in the same way that we have been, although we all like to think that we are, but there's just so many other things at play. And it just makes for a very stressful production sometimes. And then when we all get on set and it's all working smoothly and everyone can relax, I feel like that spark kind of comes back. So,
yes,
hearing you appreciate that, that's part of your role. Like, I like that you call yourself a goofball, and like, you're just trying to make it like, you're just trying to remind people that we're here to also, have a good time and create something amazing.
Yes. And, as stressful as it is, it's still like I sometimes look around, I'm like, I can't believe I'm here. And I've done this for so long and I still feel that way. I still get excited about it. And I want everybody else to be excited about it, even when it is stressful. There was a time just recently I was on a shoot, and, we were so crunched for time, and I'm waiting, I'm in charge of making sure the talent is getting to set on time. We're waiting for the hair and makeup. And then all of this stuff is going on. I just remember the scene that the gal was going to go do is sort of this party nightclub type thing. And we were in the motorhome, and I just talked to the motorhome guy. I'm like, can you put some like hardcore techno on? And he goes, oh yeah, I got this guy on my side. Can you put some hardcore techno on and get the lights dimmed out? So all of a sudden, my favorite song, Insomnia, I had him put that on by Faithless, and the girl turns around the corner. I go, let's go, Petra. And we just started.
Oh, that's great.
Dancing. I had the place was shaking. We were all dancing, getting ready for the next.
Oh, I love that.
I don't know. I like to have a good time. Listen, I'm very serious, and these productions are very serious, but when you can bring a little bit of life to it, it just makes me so happy.
Definitely. So what do you think would be helpful for photographers and reps to understand better about your job? We all get into these like linear moments and these narratives in our brain of what's happening on a production or a shoot or estimating or wherever. And I always feel like sometimes if people would step back a little bit and be reminded of, there's certain things about your job, Jessica, that are, that people tend to forget. What would one of those things be?
Well, and I don't know, I'm not speaking for everybody, but for myself, I just want everyone to know that I'm always thinking 360. I'm thinking about every aspect, and not just the production. I'm trying to anticipate needs, and I'm carefully listening to every single person, the photographer, my team, my clients, like looking at budgets. And, there's a lot of balancing going on. So I feel like you've got to have that 360 vision in order to make sure that you have all the elements needed to succeed. And, there's sometimes when you're on set and you have to switch gears, and it's my job to try and stay calm and come up with solutions.
Yeah.
And, my solutions, I try to make sure that my solutions are for the greater good of the shoot, and that to me, nobody is invisible on my set.
Yeah.
My job is not more important than any other job on set. And I definitely want to make sure to give props to everybody while we're on set, so that they know that they're appreciated.
Back to that 360 idea and kind of thinking ahead at all moments. I think I know the answer to this, but like, I'm guessing that seeps into your regular life as well. Is that true?
Oh, definitely. Just aside from my job, like, being a mother, etc.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm saying that because of Milder, like I see that all the time. I do that all the time. And I think sometimes my kids are just like, okay, back off. I'll get there. Like you just get there so much faster than I do. Just like, give me a second.
I don't want to force it on anyone. I'm definitely having the vision. And, I hope that, being calm and being a good listener.
Yes.
And, being able to explain myself will help people get on board.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I do something I'm working on myself is this idea of curiosity, you know, not
Yes.
solving a problem, not just coming in and being the one that manages, but like just taking a beat and listening,
Yes.
being curious and asking questions and try to learn more of a situation before just, you know, being the person who has seen this before and think they know the answer.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. I think listening is the first step to being, you know, having this 360, because I need to listen to all sides and be quiet for a minute before I just, you know, spew something out of my mouth. I need to make sure that I have considered everything before I make a decision.
Yeah.
You know, based on this, like, especially like I said, when you get into a situation where there's an issue that you did not forecast, you know, weather. Oh my gosh.
Oh my
All of a
God.
sudden now it's pouring rain. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
I'm on,
We've got a big project.
I'm in the middle of the city. We did not
Yeah.
expect rain. Nobody has a coat. You know what I mean? It's just, you know, how do you work it out?
Well, they look for you to be the, no pun intended, but the calm in the storm, right? Like the
Right.
person to solve that problem. So,
Right.
okay. So I'm also curious, you know, our industry is evolving at, you know, to say breakneck speed is probably doesn't do it justice.
Mhm.
And I just am really curious, you know, what you think a good word to kind of define what's going on out there would be.
I would say transition.
Yeah. Does sometimes transition makes me think slower than what's happening, right? Like I
Oh.
feel like we're definitely transitioning, but maybe it is happening slow. I don't know. I just feel like things are happening so fast. It's hard to keep up. Do you feel the same way?
No,
No.
I don't. I feel like I've been hearing about these transitions for a long time, but nobody has moved quickly. And I think during COVID, we started to see the, you know, the uptick with the importance of social media, et cetera. And it may seem like it happened really quickly, but that was the trajectory, I think.
Yeah.
And when I say transition, I don't see that as a good or a bad word, because I don't think, you know, obviously there's going to be issues with some things and different people are going to, you know, process things differently. But I like the word transition because you never know what greatness can come out of it.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting because I always think about, you know, when my kids were graduating from high school or even college, like there was like a big transition from them for one thing to the next.
Yes.
I would always say, like, they're about to become their next best person. We don't know what that is, but we know there's going to be some sort of transition. And that's always kind of
Yes.
stuck in my mind. And I feel like as an industry, we're there right now. Like, what is our next best? And person's not the right word, but like,
Right.
who will we be as an industry? What's the next
Right.
best part of us?
And I feel like it's going through yet another transition.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of things. I go back to, I was just talking to somebody about when we went from photography to straight CGI. And I feel as though a lot of photographers sort of lost their jobs, and, you know, the people that created the CGI were thinking that they were just going to do it by themselves. And, you know, you get the image back and there's two sun sources. Well, that's not going to work.
Right.
They don't know that, you know, it was a very technical task. And,
Yeah.
oh, guess what? We actually do need the photographers. Hi,
Yeah.
guys, can you come back? Totally kidding. Even in the beginning, just to oversee. Okay, yeah, that's two light sources,
Yeah.
two sun balls. I don't know what planet that we're on.
Right.
But I sort of see that, and we can get into this too about AI.
Well, it's a great transition to that conversation. You
Yes.
know? What are you seeing? What's happening on your side of the table with AI?
So a similar thing with the whole, you know, the CGI, you know, the advent of the CGI. I feel that's sort of the same with AI. I know a lot of people are nervous, and yes, it's going to take a minute to sort of settle it. But, you know, even talking to somebody about translating, you know, you would think, oh, this is perfect. Now I can take this film and I can translate it in all these different languages, and I don't even need anybody, just do AI. But there's certain nuances that need a human being. You know,
Yeah.
if you're speaking to like an urban group, I don't think AI has a grasp on that. You need to lead it.
Yeah.
And again, in the beginning, it's very scary when something like this comes about, just like it was with CGI. But I think we're back in a place where we realize we definitely need human handholding.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting, and I'm excited. I've started sort of taking a few classes on it myself. I've used it. I've had other vendors, provide us with things. I especially like voiceover, which is another situation. That's another thing where you really need some human handholding. But it's interesting. I'm definitely not afraid of it. I want to, I don't know about master it. I want to get more into it myself and see how it could help elaborate. I'm a very, I already told you I'm a huge advocate for artists, and I never want to see human art go away. But there's enough room for this AI in our creative realm, in work, and then also just out there in the world. So we'll see. I'm interested to see where it's going.
My husband has an agency, and they it's called Super Good, and it has a really big AI component, and they've developed some software that they use for strategy creation and audience identification. And they talk about how, it is very human centric, and they're creating power tools for their creatives. Sorry about that phone. So they're not trying to take anything away from the creatives. They're just trying to give them power tools. And I think a lot about when you referred to CGI, one of the photographers that we represent, his name's Andy Glass, and he really understood, dug in and made sure he understood CGI. And he's now a CGI director. And what that means is he's there to oversee the CGI process to make sure it's real, and there's a collaboration there, and he's the kind of the voice between the CGI and the agency and the creatives. And I see that happening right now with AI. Like, I tell our artists all the time, like, you don't have to like what's going on with AI, but you have to understand it, because you either have to talk against it, right, if you don't think it's right for the project and you're being considered, or you have to understand it enough to kind of direct how it's going to be used. And I think the more people who can be in the category of directing it and understanding it, they'll have those power tools to work with.
I think the more information that you have, the less fearful you are of it. And, just like you said, it takes a minute to sort of get on board and I'm not saying you have to immerse yourself. You should just, at least have a baseline understanding of it.
Yeah.
And when you think about it that way, and you think about how it can actually help you as a tool instead of taking over your job, it's very interesting.
It is. And you see all these examples out there of things that have been created with AI. And I'm not advocating for it or against it. I'm just I'm in this curiosity phase of trying to understand it. Yes. And nobody went in and pushed a button and created it, right? There are many people who still had jobs and were paid and worked to create it. Yes. So again, I'm not talking about copyright here. I'm not talking about usage. I'm not talking about, all the legal aspects that are very scary for a lot of people. I'm just talking about the idea that there are jobs around this. And the more those of us who are afraid of losing our jobs understand it and can figure out where we can fit in, the more we will be evolving with that transition as opposed to being left behind.
Yes. And I also see sort of a renaissance of bringing film back. Yeah. I mean, we're all the way over here talking about AI and, and then all of a sudden you looked behind you, you're like, oh my gosh, somebody went to Kodak and asked them to create film. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of, I don't know, it's sort of opening up more doors. And I really hope that I'm right about that it's not taking jobs, and they're actually creating jobs in AI. And then there's, like I said, the folks that are going back and using actual film.
Yeah. So, it's really kind of like, it's like you said, if you could be curious, right? Yes. You could be interested in what's going on. There's some really interesting things going on out there. So
I agree.
So what kind of projects are you seeing happening out there right now?
I think, as I mentioned before, I'm really seeing harder working sets. I think the idea of having multiple shoots going on one set, I see that more than just a very simple, straightforward still shoot. Yeah. And, this isn't where I'm not talking about you're doing a big fat broadcast shoot and then the poor stills guy's waiting for like 2 seconds to, do you know what I mean? That is difficult. I'm saying
Excuse
something
me, yes,
like,
you're making me laugh.
because I've been on that set
It's
where
so
you're like,
true.
"Wait, hi, can I do my 3 seconds with the, oh, okay, no, go ahead." This, more so, let's say I can have two cars on set, right? And I've got a photographer and then maybe I've got an interior photographer on the same set and we've got both things going. You're kind of going back and forth. One of the last shoots I worked on for Mazda, the client kept asking us, we need to, save money. We need to save money. So I literally created this crazy shoot. And I can't believe I pulled this off. And when I talk to other people, there's such a separation of church and state when it comes to broadcast and stills. So it was interesting that I could get my foot in the door in between both of them. We decided that we loved the look and the feel that the photographer was bringing. And instead of going to find a director and making him shoot in the same style as our photographer, we wanted our photographer to be the director. And, he had already directed a few things. We asked him to be a director and we made sure that we got a DP that really knew the ins and outs of broadcast and running footage. So I added a running footage package to my still and video shoot. And we saved, I'm not taking anything away from the unions or like a big fat broadcast, all the percentages that add up money-wise, but it made a lot of sense for our client. We got a ton of assets and I think everybody was really happy. Plus it was a code red shoot, so it was just easier to sort of manage the entire shoot under one umbrella. And I'm seeing a lot. I mean, the running footage thing is interesting. I just did something like this with Mercedes as well. I don't think a lot of people are really open to that, but I think if you know what you're doing and you make sure you're covered, pardon me, and by no means am I skimping. I'm having all the ITC. I'm adding the first ADs. I'm adding everybody that needs to be there for the running footage portion of it. We're really treating it as such.
And it sounds like you thought it was a success and you would suggest that again.
Oh, in a minute. I think we saved $150,000.
Wow.
Just right off the top by putting these together. And like I said, I think there are a lot of very talented still photographers who would like to get into video. They just need support. So to make sure I had the right production team and to align them with a DP that knows how to light, knows everything there is to know about cars. They just need to bring their look and their attitude and their,
well, and we're
to the set.
We're seeing it on both sides, right? Like I'll get a phone call saying, hey, I need an artist who can shadow, broadcast or shadow video. Who do you have? And I'm like, okay, well, pretty much everyone can do that in my now. So here you go. You choose who's relevant. But then I'm always like, gosh, come to me first. If you come to me first and if it's not motion forward on their end, like I can be really creative on how we do this.
Yes.
And I can get these guys a DP and we can, do something a little bit different than what you need. And like you said, make especially
if it's the photographer that has the look and feel. I don't need to get, and again, Mazda is one of those companies that really loved the still image. I mean, they were just massaging all the gorgeous lines of the car. They really spent a lot of time talking about it. So, broadcast is a little bit different. They're not massaging every little piece of film, every frame. Yeah. And in order to make that video seem more like our stills, it made so much sense to have our photographer who kind of helped create that look and feel. The photographers, I should say, was a team. Just have them move right into directing. It made so much sense. And I'm just lucky because I felt I had a lot of respect that I earned when I worked at Mazda for so long. The creative team, they would pull me in the very beginning stages and we would talk and they appreciated the ideas that I had. And I presented them with that idea and they were happy.
And it's so interesting that you bring that up because I find that that's something that's being lost right now in the current transition that our industry is going through, because I'm seeing a lot of the top art producers either leaving the industry or being let go or being replaced by younger junior people who don't have the agency history or the client history or industry history. I'm seeing clients or brands not being as loyal as they were, like to these agency of records, and splitting up things or bringing it in house. And, with our food photography artists, I am seeing that loyalty because those brands stick around for a while. And I see the collaboration and how it's so different because that repeat business allows for efficiency and creativity and kind of evolution that like you're kind of reinventing the wheel every time you bring on a new artist. And I'm not saying each, project doesn't need a new artist, but like there is value in having these important roles, excuse me, stick around for a while.
Right. I agree. And I definitely see that change. There's a lot more freelance. There's a lot. And listen, I want to bring up the younger generation, that give them a little direction and let them stay a while so they can get their feet wet and you can see, the performance instead of just burning people out and getting rid of them. Really having more faith and respecting what these folks have to say could really help.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so how are artists or reps or people, especially since you're freelance, like how are they connecting with you to share new work with you?
So I'm still getting emails, and I definitely make sure to attend any shows if I'm invited to. There's a bunch of different shows for, to look at portfolios. This is why I got into this business. I love looking at photography. I love looking at videos. So anytime I'm asked to participate, I make sure to be there. And having conversations with photographers and, they asking my opinion about things, and I'm staying current with them and asking them how they shot things and what they think. It's great. I definitely want to stay involved.
Now, when you get these emails, are there any messages that are more effective or useful than others? Or is it just, you're happy to just look at new work?
Personally, and this about me, I really do love this. So if I receive an email with a promo, I'm looking at it. And I'm also digging around online just to see what else is out there all over the world.
Yeah.
And fashion. And it's not, I do have a lot of car experience, but I'm very interested in all types of photography and what people are up to. So I'm looking at everything. And you never know, as far as freelance, where you're going to land and who your next client is. So I definitely want to stay up to date on what's happening with in all aspects of photography and film.
You're bringing up such a good point that I think sometimes artists forget. Like, you are not only in this business because it's your job, obviously, and you don't just look at the emails or check out new work because it's your job. You do it because you're interested, right? Culturally, you're excited. You want to know what's going on. So when an artist isn't creating new work, and they're repurposing old work, which I don't disagree with, because there is a way to repurpose older content to share a relevant newer message. But it's so important to create new work, because that new work will be culturally relevant, and more in keeping with the times. That if they're not sharing that with you, sharing new work with you, you're going to notice, because your vision of their work and the work out there is evolving every day with each new piece of art that you're looking at. And it just is a reminder to me that, like, you notice this stuff. You are paying attention, and you will know if someone's not evolving their look.
Well, I don't think it's a detriment, but I also feel like there hasn't been a ton of work for everybody. Obviously, last year was rough.
Yeah.
And I do want to see, if you're really proud of something and it's like an amazing, whatever you did for, let's say it's a couple years old, the vehicle, and I know vehicles so well. So of course I'm going to figure out that the design is a few years old, but if it's a beautiful piece, then I don't see the problem in keeping it in there. However, when I go to these shows and when I go, or when I'm looking at emails, and it does not have to be commissioned work. I really am interested in what you're doing with your free time. And if you have free time, I want to see what you're working on. Yeah. What are you working on for yourself? And I'm not saying you work, and even bigger than that, not just what you worked on for yourself. Oh, I grabbed a truck and I shot it. I'm hoping that, the company that I shot, the vehicle, that they'll pick it up, or maybe, no, I want to see you go out and go shoot a flower. Because that's something in your wheelhouse nobody knows about that you secretly love and desire. And I want to see it.
Yeah.
Because I can cross that bridge. I get it. I want to know what you're doing and what your passions are without being hired and without having the desire to make sure it sells or make money off of it.
And, I think that is so important to reiterate to people who are listening, because I tell artists all the time, not just those on my roster, but those that I meet or consult with or, see at events and shows like you're talking about, that like, you don't have to spend money, a lot of money on a test, right? So I have some artists who are like, I can't do a cat test because I'm not really making any money right now and I can't spend money on it. I'm like, okay, yeah, totally get it. But like in the beginning of your career, you didn't have any money and you were out there shooting all the time. And there's so many stories that invite you in to tell about them, that is what will inspire other people. So it's not just that you can, build a set or get a car or, all these expensive styling things. Like, no, you don't necessarily need to do that. You just need to show that you're inspired by the world.
Inspired by the world. And I want to see what you're doing without direction.
Yeah.
What are you, and even if you are getting something for your book, say you're a lifestyle photographer and now you want to get into cars. I've had this question so many times. You're already doing a great job. You got the talent, whatever, stick a car in there.
Yeah.
Stick a car in there. Let me see what you've got. And like I said, even that's one thing, but also I love the stories when I look at a book and all of a sudden there's a tree. It has nothing to do with a car in their book. And they're like, this is a personal piece I did. And they give me the story about the tree and how much they love the tree. It's like, this is why I connect with artists. I want to hear your story. I want to know about your tree. I already know about the cars.
Yeah.
I got it. I've got it.
Wait, so when
what other artistic things are you doing that have nothing to do with this? Makes me so happy when we get to talk about things like that.
And you get such an insight into the person, because they're only going to talk about the stuff that is the most meaningful for them. And I think you don't always get insight into that when you're looking at a commercial image.
Correct.
So how do you find talent? What's your process?
Oh, I'm a digger.
Yeah.
I am McGruff the crime dog. I am sniffing it out. I'll do everything, in addition to all the shows and whatnot. And even though I feel like I know so many of the folks that are out there, I don't ever just spit out a name. I'll look over the project details or the one sheet or the creative guide or even just an initial conversation with creatives. I'll go back and I will look through everybody's portfolio that I think is right for this. And even the ones I may have thought right away, I'm like, I don't know. But I make sure to give a huge list to my creatives, but I dig around. I mean, and it's based on, like I said, all the shows that I've gone to, the folks that I've met, the emails that I'm getting. And it's in my brain, but I definitely go back and go to their websites, review everything, maybe even look for the one image that will spark. And even if there isn't something, like I will send somebody who I feel can definitely do the job. And maybe the car isn't up against the Disney Center like they wanted, but I feel like the creatives can definitely use their imagination and say, you know what, you're right. This guy could do this. And then it's kind of up to sort of selling it to the client at that point.
And are there any trends or styles you're seeing right now that your creative teams are excited about?
I would say there's been a move, and well, it's been happening for a while, but it's just a very loose docu-style where, especially for cars, there was, for years we were, like I said, bringing out the beauty of the lines of the car. And I'm not saying that that's not happening, but it's definitely more talent. And not one thing is as important as getting this whole story and an image where there's a lot of action going on.
And when they communicate what they're looking for to you, do they share websites? Do they share artists? Do they share Swipe? Or do they just cut it? Or it just varies? Instagram?
You mean the creative team?
Yeah, the creative team. Sorry.
Oh, it depends. Everybody's different. Sometimes I'll get a couple links, but for the most part, they're really relying upon me to bring them something, which is great. I invite them. When I was working at the agency, I always had portfolio shows. I invited everybody. I miss that. No, I miss having that because, I was inviting the copywriters. I'm inviting people that work in the studio. Just, you never know who you're going to affect or where an idea is going to come from. And like I said, I never just had photography. I always had other folks in there, even a lifestyle photographer. People would get excited, like, you know what, that one gal that did the lifestyle photography, I feel like she'd be so good at this. I know she doesn't have cars in her book, but just sort of transcending that mentality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's different for everybody.
So when you're looking on websites, right, to send links to your creatives, is there anything on a website that you like to see and is helpful, and is there anything that's like super annoying?
Heavy load times that I think people are getting. We are twitchy, and if it's not loading, we're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I think, for the most part, I think the websites are so beautiful. I really don't have too many issues with not finding what I need to find. I appreciate an about section as well. I'm looking at the images and I like all the different folders. This one was for clients. This one's personal. I'm looking at everything when I look at their websites. And like I said, I like the about portion. I want to know what you're up to. Some of them are really funny, and you get a sense of who this photographer is if you haven't worked for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay. Yeah, I do think people have gotten better at the website for sure.
Yes.
At first, they got a little too artistic and in their name on anything. And now I think there's like a nice balance of like efficiency and personality. So
correct. I go back to form follows function always.
Always.
My Bauhaus mentality.
It is a good basic. Okay, what about the creative call? I know we all know how important it is, but I do think sometimes it gets taken for granted. So what advice do you have for artists? And does it hurt them if they're not able to be on camera?
I have not ever had a problem with the folks that I'm working with being upset about the person not being on camera. Half of the time, these people are working and they're taking their lunch break on a set that they're already on to go sit in a car or bathroom or someplace quiet to get on the phone. I don't think anybody really cares.
Yeah.
It's nice to see them, but I think listening closely to, we'll definitely send the boards. I want to make sure that you have the boards and that you've reviewed them and that you have your personal opinion about it, because that's why we're hiring you.
Yeah.
I think after listening to what everybody says, I don't think you should be afraid to speak up, present your point of view, and let everybody know what type of research you've done. We're not stealing any ideas. It only makes it better. I've been on calls where we've had, we're usually triple vid. We've got 3 photographers we're talking to, and somebody will have read and researched the deck that we sent over and come up with a suggestion. We're like we gasp. We're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I never would have thought of that. So I think it's important to speak up and present a point of view.
Well, and thank you for sending those decks and boards ahead of time. I know it seems really obvious, but sometimes we get it like right before the call. And then it becomes like the creatives are a bit of a tour guide, and we don't really have a lot of chance to to kind of, think about anything.
Yeah.
Create our treatment. So,
well, if that's the case, I would just suggest reviewing it. And then as an art producer, I always say, to the photographer, listen, if you have any other questions or you want to review anything, please contact me. I am so happy to go over everything and have them ask me and have them give their point of view to me, which I will then obviously send on to my crew.
Yeah.
And I get that happens sometimes, but it's not a burden, and I welcome it.
What about treatments? I mean, they are so important. We hear all the time, and there's a lot of time and energy and money and effort put into them on this end. Sometimes they fall, on deaf ears, meaning we don't get a lot of feedback or we aren't allowed to produce them. And other times they're met with, we're allowed to present, and there's another chance for really strong collaboration there. In your experience, how, I don't want to use the word appreciated, but how useful do you find the treatments on your end? And are the creatives, combing through them and reading them and using them for their presentations to the clients?
I guess I want to ask you a question. And obviously you don't have to mention names or anything. Are you having an issue with people not reviewing these, or is this an issue?
I think that, yes, the industry
Wow.
is, I don't know if it's not reviewing them, but it's the amount of time and energy and money that is
Yes.
put into them in this triple bid process. And then when you don't get the job, there's a lot of, oh, sorry, we went in another direction. So
Right.
after hours and hours and hours of, and money and time and effort, without any feedback or equal time put into an explanation, I think it's led to a lot of morale issues around the treatment.
Wow.
We also don't have direct access to the client.
Yes.
So I can do everything right with my team and my artist on our end and have a great call and do a great bid that comes in on budget, and our treatment is stellar. And you've got two other really amazing choices, right? And they probably did a great job too. But you guys are the ones who are presenting it to the client. We aren't. So we don't have direct access to the client. So we have to trust that, it's not even trust. It's it's just, we aren't there in the room. So we don't get to, be part of those conversations and ask the questions and sway the client.
I see.
So it's when you don't get the job, I think you fall harder after all that work has been put in.
I would say that it's critical to have a treatment, that I need to know that you've spent time visualizing the project, and it's incumbent upon the producer to make sure that the creatives have reviewed it, received it, and have questions or comments about the treatment. I feel like the treatment sometimes can make or break. It's the same situation when we're talking about the creative call and sort of presenting your point of view briefly and, before the treatment. But I've had treatments come through after calls that have changed our minds.
Yeah. In either direction. You could have a client and an artist that you thought was your first choice, and now after the treatment, they might not be, or the other way around.
Yeah. And so in my world, the treatment goes around our agency. There's usually a few there's a creative director, art director. There's teams of people that are reviewing this, and we'll get together and go over it. And we'll talk about, budgeting before I even get a budget, oh, I love these ideas. What do you think, Jessica? Do you think this is something, what they're talking about, is this crazy? Or, a standout treatment shows us that you have a roadmap after reviewing the deck and discussing the project on the call with the creative team, that it has clear and concise ideas about how we're going to move forward.
Yeah.
Because especially if it's somebody new that we haven't worked with, I need to know how you are going to pull this off.
Yeah.
And then after reviewing all of that, there are, the three, we move forward with getting an estimate. So the estimate and the sort of, happening in tandem, the estimate and the treatments. And, usually our client, and well, I shouldn't say usually, it depends on the client, but they want to look at the recommended treatment. I don't know if they're going to have time to look through everybody's.
Right.
So after the agency has come up with, here's our list of folks that we're interested in working with in order, they are interested in seeing that. And we can talk them through that.
Well, and also I take a moment to remind everyone that even though they take a long time, right? And there's a lot
takes forever
into them. The amount of time that an artist is getting with a creative team and an agency is enormous, right? You had to, if you think about from the beginning, you, Jessica, kind of sent along a big, long list of artists. Mm-hmm. Your creative team narrowed it down to a few. That narrowed down to 3 or maybe 4 who do a creative call. I have no idea how many. And then 3 get to bid. Yeah. And then in that process, 3 create a treatment through which the creatives spend time reading those treatments, and maybe you're fortunate enough to get to present to the creatives during that time. And now they're analyzing your bid, your treatment, and everything, talking about you to the client. So you have made it through the gauntlet, and you have had so much time, which is more time than we can have even as a rep. Yes. And I just want to remind any talent that is listening, that it is an opportunity, that even if you do not succeed in getting the job, it is an enormous opportunity for you to show off your talent.
I agree. And I, as a producer who's constantly planning things, this is an opportunity for photographers to sort of plan out the shoot ahead of time. And that's why I kept referring to it as a roadmap. I mean, if you're really creatively thinking about how you're going to move forward with this, you're showing me how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you're right. Most of the clients are trusting the agency with creatively, and they're excited. But I will say, we presented treatments and we presented portfolios of 3 folks that we're interested in. And I will tell you that there was a time we moved forward with one photographer, we presented a new one, and the client's like, wow, I really like this work. And I want to remember this person for another project. I don't think they're right for this, but thank you for sending us this person. You know what I mean? You're exactly right. You're getting in front of a client, and it's a good look.
I agree. So the award process.
Yes.
I need you to answer me honestly here. And I know that you will, but I want you to take a second to really think about this, because I think the quick answer is one answer. And I think what we experience on our end, which I will explain, is different. So
okay.
When we go into a 3-bid process, a lot of times we will hear, oh, you're the recommend, right? And then the clients go into, or the creatives go into the award call, and we don't end up getting the job. Mm-hmm. And there's so many reasons that can happen. I mean, that happens to everybody. But I think it's kind of become a thing in the industry where people are like, oh God, do not make me the recommend. It is a death wish. Like, I'm not the job if you become.
Wow.
And I think one thing that people are thinking is that, the creatives and the agencies believe so much in their value, and they present to the client. And they used to present 3 options, but there was one clear choice. And the other 2 people didn't really spend as much time with. And now you have to present 3 really strong options, and every one of them has to be thought through, because you don't know which ones the clients are going to choose. And therefore, it feels like the clients are at a bit more control over who's choosing. Now, I could be completely making up a narrative here, but what is your experience?
My experience has been, and again, I've only been freelancing a little while. I worked for several companies for years and years. My experience was that our agencies respected our creative team, really respected them. And I didn't have just one client. There were several clients we used to work with over the years. And I feel as though when we made a recommendation, they were on board. I think maybe 1 or 2 times they were like, no, we really want to use so-and-so. And I personally am never telling anybody that they recommend, because how the heck do I know?
Right.
I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I don't know anything until somebody signs my budget, signs my estimate. Okay, great. You are the recommend. You got the job. Because you're right. Even like I said, I'll send over links. We'll go through everything. I love sitting with the team and talking about it. Have you worked with this person before? They want to ask me a bunch of questions. It's fantastic. Maybe they had somebody in mind, but when we start looking over everything and really talking it through and how they want things to move forward, it'll change.
Yeah.
And then again, it could change again once we get off the call. Oh my gosh, I can't believe so-and-so said this. I never would have thought about that. They just moved up, a little bit. Everybody else is great, but I hadn't really thought about that. And that's a really good point. And then, maybe the treatments come through and it's another level of, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I want to work with this is so well thought out. This is somebody I want to work with. And then you obviously, like I said, you have the final stage with the client, where in my experience, 99% of the time when we make a recommendation, as long as they're not exorbitantly higher, because, obviously a lower bid is going to usually be the one that moves forward. But I would say, 99% of the time, they're going to go with our recommendation.
Yeah.
Because they know how hard we've worked.
Clients have also become stronger collaborators with their agency, right? So we discount that. So I think that's an important thing to remember as well.
Well, I think you can't discount the client's artistic point of view. You know, you want to just say, oh, they're completely relying upon us, but you need to educate them. We make sure to explain everything. I have gone over estimates in such detail. I will go line item by line item to make sure that everybody knows what they're paying for. I will discuss the photographers if we've worked with them before. We will talk about the call. We'll talk about the treatment. I think, like I said, educating them so they feel like they're a part of it. It's kind of, it's that conversation when you don't know, it's sort of fear-based and, oh my gosh, how am I going to do that? And, not a lot of the clients understand when they come into that role. Yeah, I've worked for clients that used to move people from different departments. Like, oh, we've got so-and-so in the finance department. Now they're going to be your marketing client.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that used to happen. So, it takes time and not being patronizing. You just need to educate and make sure they understand. And it's nice and building better relationships with clients that way.
I totally agree. Okay, so back to your word transition.
Yeah.
Do you think that word will change over the year? We're halfway through the year almost. Do you think that will change, or do you feel like 2025 will fully be a year of transition?
Oh, it's still going on. I mean, with everything happening and not a lot of work in Los Angeles. We've had the strikes, then we had the fires, and we've had no tax incentives. And I'm talking bigger, like larger commercials and films, etc.
Yeah.
We're still trying to just get a handle on getting a job in Los Angeles. And for most of the folks that live here, they could swim circles around most people on these sets. But, if it's happening in Arizona, they don't have the budgets to pay for a producer to come out and oversee that and put them up at a hotel. They're going to pick a producer in Arizona most of the time. Yeah. So it's just a matter of getting this work back here.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't happen, the transition thing, I mean, who knows? I'm just, trying to stay relevant.
Yeah. It's been hit with a lot. And I know from our end, we're still absolutely pushing for Los Angeles productions for some reasons. But I also hear clients, which I'm always surprised by, be like, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't, shoot in Los Angeles. Things are a little chaotic there and the fires and whatever. And I'm like, wow, like that is the reason to shoot in Los Angeles. Like, don't give up on them. It's not chaotic. They're looking for work and they've got it figured out, and they're a production town. Like they didn't fall apart over this. They assembled and organized and figured it out, but they need the work. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So before we end, I always ask everybody the same two questions. And my first one for you is, what's your favorite thing to do on a Sunday? And then the other one is, if you weren't a producer, what would you be?
Oh my goodness. Well, if it's a Sunday or whatever day it is and I'm free, if it's not football, I recently got very into football, which is hysterical. As you know, the type of person I am. Yeah. I'm very much into this, and it has a lot to do with my son, but I like watching football. I'm obviously going to any live event. Music. I love going to the beach. I love walking to the beach. I'm very close and very happy. I need to see the water. I love an art gallery. I love to see my family and my friends, and the best part, family and friends and a good meal, is the pinnacle. Yeah. And if I wasn't doing this, I'd be a producer. Yeah. For real. And the movie production part of it is something I think I had told you earlier that I didn't see myself doing. And now that I do it, this is what I want to do when I grow up.
Yeah. That's amazing. Are you watching the Netflix show, The Studio? Or not Netflix.
The Apple. I haven't started that one because I had all these other shows, but I'm definitely interested in seeing that. It's
interesting. It's hard it's like when Mad Men came around, my husband didn't like it because he was just like, oh, it's like I'm watching my job.
It's so good now. I feel like I need to go back to Mad Men. It's so good.
Like, you watch your job at night. So The Studio is really interesting because it's like you watch it and you're just like, oh my God, I know exactly what's going on here. Yeah,
it's pretty interesting.
But it was so lovely chatting with you today, Jessica.
Thank you. It's so nice to speak to you again.
When I'm in LA,
please
invite. And truly, I just wish you the best of luck. I hope everything goes Los Angeles' way, and just know we're all pulling for you. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.